Hey there, Jake here from CVP. Red announced the original V-Raptor back in 2021, and since then they've continuously updated it and released several versions featuring different sensors, with their latest Raptor, the XE, coming out late last year. They recently released a new set of firmware for the Raptor cameras, which brings a range of new changes and features that we've actually helped shape a little bit, which is pretty awesome. So in this video, we're going to reflect on Red's current Raptor cameras, break down the new firmware, and talk you through the new feature that we worked with Red to implement. Let's get into it. The Red Raptor series of cameras have been some of our favourites ever. There have been quite a few versions of the Raptor though, which include the 8K-VV, 8K Super 35, the X 8K-VV, and the latest XC 8K-VV. This can be a little bit confusing, so this is a chart breaking down the key differences and the different lens mounts available for them as well. Their latest version, the XC, offers a lot of performance for its price. This familiar, compact and versatile body houses the exact same 8K VistaVision global shutter sensor inside the Raptor X. This global shutter sensor is truly brilliant, as Red have somehow managed to get the same dynamic range out of it as their already excellent rolling shutter VV sensor in the original Raptor. The XE behaves and performs exactly the same as the regular X, so it still has the same beautiful image quality and stellar dynamic range. And of course, its global shutter, which is very desirable for many filmmakers and productions who want rock-solid motion with no rolling shutter artifacts. Though it does have some features removed that the X has, here's a list of all of them. Anyway, let's take a look at the new firmware, starting with the new feature that we worked with Red to implement. Some of you more familiar with CVP will know we have a fantastic technical support team. And if you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you may recognise Sam, our head technical consultant, who was a driver behind getting this new feature implemented with Red. So let's hear from him how this feature came about and why it's so interesting.
Hey, it's Sam from CVP here. I haven't been on YouTube for a while. Jake hasn't really let me on it since last time. Tip. Today we're going to be covering a little bit about Red's new firmware. V2.2 has added some nice new features, especially improvements to Phantom Track. When we first got the Raptor X into our central London showroom, at GTS, where we're sitting right now, we put a camera against our LED wall because we were really excited to test Phantom Track. However, we noticed that it only worked with some certain limitations and had been working with Red and discussing this with them. And it's great to see that they took the feedback on board and some great new features have been added to the new firmware. So in beta firmware V2.2, Red have added Discrete Phantom Track control, which allows you to retime the capture of the second track. They've also added a sensor sync shift, which allows really fine control over gen lock shifts. By turning on Phantom Track in camera, you're actually recording at double the frame rate. So for example, if you set 25 frames per second in camera, you're actually recording at 50 frames per second. However, you're not recording a single 50 frames per second track. You're recording two separate 25 frames per second tracks. Phantom Track is a way of capturing two different parts of the refresh of an LED, either to shoot different pieces of content or to allow a buffer for a chroma layer as well as the content in a virtual production environment by capturing two unique R3Ds and allowing you to monitor two unique feeds in real time. Phantom Track would work with either ghost frame on a megapixel processor or frame remapping as we're using here on our Brompton processor. We can find all the frame remapping settings in the camera section. By multiplying the frame rate to 2 times, we can send 50 frames per second to the wall and split the AB frames in the frame remapping section to separate content and chroma green feeds. Previously, the problem with using Phantom Track to film at 25p on an LED wall was that when you had the LED wall set to 50 frames per second and displaying A and B frames, it would appear to flicker to the human eye, which is very uncomfortable to view in person. You could set your LED to 100 frames per second for a smoother eye experience, but this would lead to both Phantom Tracks seeing the same feed. This was because you could not retime the camera's second track, and as a result it would only pick up the A and C frames. With the new Red Beta Firmware 2.2, you can now retime your second Phantom Track and offset it by 100th of a second, which then allows for both a good in-eye experience and capture of unique tracks at 25 frames per second. Now, one big thing with this and why the Raptor X is so good at it is because it's got a global shutter sensor. Say a chunk at 200 frames per second is only going to be 5 milliseconds. If you are using a rolling shutter camera where the read reset time of the sensor is greater than 5 milliseconds, you're going to start to blend frames. One frame is not going to fit within the read reset time of the sensor. It's great to see a manufacturer like Red take this sort of feedback on board and implement these kinds of changes into a new firmware, as some of our customers from VP installations for our projects team here at CVP had been requesting features like this. So this new firmware has really solidified the Raptor X as one of the best cameras for LED-based virtual production. Hopefully this cleared up what that feature is within the new firmware, but if you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can book a demo here at Great Titchfield Street in our Fitzrovia showroom, and even have a little test on this stage yourselves.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to buy anything you see in this video, any other filmmaking or photography gear, head over to cvp.com, where our experienced team is waiting to help you. First off, Red have actually reduced the boot time, so let's take a look at how much it has dropped. For these tests, we are running the firmware on 2.1.1 and then 2.2 beta across 2 Raptor X's. The new firmware shaves roughly 10 seconds off the boot time. It's reduced from just over 30 seconds down to just over 20, which is a decent difference. I still wouldn't consider this fast, but this is a cinema camera, and some of them can take a while to boot up. But at least Red have managed to shave some time off of the boot. One big addition of this firmware has to be the tweaks to power consumption, which Red teased to us back when the Raptor XE was announced last year. Red didn't give us any numbers, so we've had to do some testing ourselves to see how much it's helped. For these tests, fortunately the Raptor cameras give you a decent amount of power information in the menu, so we can see how much the camera is using across a few different recording modes, using the included power supply to keep power consistent. These results are using the same camera in the same conditions at factory default settings, and we rolled the firmware back and forth with the same power supply powering the camera. Looking at the results, we can see a clear difference between the two firmware. We can see decent drops in power draw, which will result in getting more time out of your batteries. Here's a table of the kind of improvements you should expect using a few different size batteries. Up next, Red have added 2 new ways of triggering and recording. This is via an external tally system and support for timecode triggering. Speaking to Red, these are more updates that are the result of direct customer feedback, which again is very cool. We don't have any footage to really cover this or some of the more specific things in this firmware, so please enjoy some A-roll shots from the different Raptor videos we've made. The external tally recording function allows a tally system to record and cut a series of cameras and even add buffers at the start and end of your clips if you like, which for post will be very helpful. This is so in multicam setups being used in a live production that also want to record a high quality 8K stream of the event. This means that you don't need to record on every single camera the entire stream, which will take up loads of data and post-processing to get the cuts lined up. With this new method, you can just pair the clips with an XML or EDL generated by whatever switcher system you are using, and you've got a full 8K timeline of your stream. This is a really smart addition, and I'm sure for large productions using Raptors like this, it's going to really streamline their workflows. The next way you can now trigger the camera is via timecode. This idea came from a customer who uses Raptors in arrays that wanted them to all trigger at the exact same time. And this allows you to send a record trigger with a timecode to multiple cameras, so they can all trigger at the exact same time. Next, they added test patterns into the cinema pipeline, which was possible with Red Broadcast before, but can now be used in the regular Cine pipeline. Up next, they added a new video overlay setting, which is a new function that allows you to enable text pop-ups over SDI whenever you press a button. This only works over SDI, not on the DSMC3 monitor. Red have added this to try and improve the use of SDI monitors on camera. And given the Raptor's design, I think it's a smart addition, as you can accidentally hit the wrong button on the wrong page quite easily if you aren't looking. This should hopefully make using an on-camera monitor that isn't the DSMC3 7-inch a bit nicer. Up next is ND iris tracking. In previous firmware, Red added smooth control of their electronic ND adapter, and this builds on this even further. This adds a function where you can enable the camera to adjust the ND as you adjust your aperture, keeping your exposure consistent but changing your depth of field. This is only possible with PL mount lenses that can pass through iris information to your camera. You can assign this function to a button, and then when you enable this, both the iris and ND values go green. Then the camera will automatically adjust as you change your iris, and then when you hit your ND limits, both of these values will go red. It's a little bit steppy compared to something like a Cine Fade, but I think you can get some cool results in certain situations. I would love to see Red take this a step further and add auto exposure to their cameras with ND. I think for a lot of run and gun shooters this could be a really great addition, but of course, I understand that's easier said than done, but it is feedback we've given Red. They have also improved their focus peaking algorithm. Just to clarify, there is a difference between the peaking you use on SMHD's interface on the DSMC3 monitor and the peaking in the Red cameras. The peaking in the camera itself uses a much more detailed video feed, so will provide much better performance. This new version of the peaking looks to narrow what's indicated as in or out of focus. Here's a side-by-side of the same image across the two different firmware. We can see a slight difference, but we need to test it more to see where the finer details are. Regardless, it still works really well, and as I said earlier, make sure you're using the Red peaking over the SMHDs. Next is improved high ISO ProRes recordings and live previews. So for this, Red have improved the linearization of the shadows, aka you should get better looking shadows in both your live previews on your monitor and in your ProRes recordings, which should better match R3D recordings. For these test shots, we grabbed some high ISO low light clips running the old and new firmware on our V-Raptor X. We shot these tests at 3200, 6400 and 12800 ISO using aperture to keep exposure consistent and shot in both R3D and ProRes. Looking at the results in post, there is a night and day difference between this old and new firmware. The new firmware is much closer to the performance we see in R3D, whereas the old clip looks far, far worse. Red have done an excellent job here of bringing the ProRes and the live preview much closer in line with the R3D you can record, which is great. Being able to record lovely downsampled 4K ProRes in camera is honestly a pretty overlooked feature of the V-Raptors, and this makes it an even better option now if you need to deliver ProRes instead of R3D. They have also added Broadcast R3D in Red Connect. This enables you to use the broadcast color pipeline for live productions not wanting to use IPP2, and a couple of other things related to live broadcast production. They also improved a few other smaller details. Here's a quick breakdown of them all. This really is a fantastic set of firmware for the Raptor cameras, and it improves them in several key areas for different productions and end users. It's great to see Red listening to customers directly still and being open to our feedback and actually implementing these features in a timely manner into their cameras. What would you love to see from Red in the future? Let us know in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.